right. So I want to welcome everybody to this presentation. My name is Daniel Pascal. I'm with the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and I'm also part of the Circuit Trails Coalition. So the East Coast Greenway is up in the corner there on the left, and the Circuit Trails is on the right there. Those are two trail organizations trying to work together to complete trails up and down the East Coast in the Philadelphia metro area and along the Delaware River especially. So I want to thank the Partnership for Delaware Estuary to have me here today to talk about some of the trails. This is a really great way to access the watershed, to access the Delaware River, the beautiful amenity that it is for the region. So there's a number of trails along a loop that I want to talk about today and show you a little bit more of. So zooming out, way out, from Maine to Florida, there's a project called the East Coast Greenway. It's about a 3,000 mile long trail network of trails that goes from Calais, Maine to Key West, Florida, and it connects people and places. And it follows a lot of paths that people have tread for thousands of years. So we want to recognize that this is land that the indigenous Native Americans inhabited long before sort of Western civilization really took hold, and wanted to kind of call out some of those partnerships that we're working to create up and down the coast. This is actually a deer skin that was painted on by a partner the East Coast Greenway Alliance had commissioned to show some of those tribes. This was by Karen Harley from the Haliwa Saponi Indian tribe, and she's out of the Durham area. And modern day East Coast is very much full of people as well, and we have 25 major cities that we're connecting, 15 states, lots and lots of towns, lots of suburbs. And there's about 25 million within a 5-mile radius, so that's usually like sort of the bikeable distance from this corridor. And wanted to highlight where along that route, the Philly to Trenton loop, or along the Delaware River that I'll be talking about today, is located. And sort of an X-ray vision to show you that this is a project that's very much in process. So we're trying to get trails on the ground so that people can actually get out there right now. And we have about 1,000 miles of those trails right now available for use. They're free to the public. They're recreation, transportation, and they get people out into the nature, and that's really what we're talking about today. And in the region a little bit closer, the DC to New York corridor, you can tell that a lot of trails are actually on the ground already, and this kind of shows an overview of some of those major kind of picturesque trails that are really known locally, but we're trying to kind of create awareness up and down, across state lines, so that folks know what's out there and know about this project. And in our region, the Delaware River watershed is really an important asset. Obviously, the watershed is important for the drinking water, but also the ecology and the habitat. So creating these trails along the Delaware River, at least where the East Coast Greenway goes, we're working with folks like the William Penn Foundation and a number of partners locally to get people out there to see those trails and see that watershed up close. So this is sort of the closer in loop. You can tell that between Philadelphia and Trenton, there's actually a trail being planned and being built along each side of the Delaware River. And a little bit closer in, we're a part of a much larger network of trails. So we're not just along the Delaware so that we can have access for folks who are outside of, maybe a rivershed or a number of river trails, so that people can kind of get across the region from walking and biking or taking transit to these places, as well as driving. And this is the Circuit Trails Network, 800 plus miles in development. So similar to us, except it's like a spider web instead of one long string. And we come through there again on that Philly to Trenton loop as we head on down to Wilmington, DC, and going north, heading up to New York and Boston. So looking at sort of the geography level, the darker solid lines are what's done. And then those faint lines is sort of the corridor where it's planned. So it's an ongoing project, years in the making, but every year there's a new trail to kind of celebrate and get people excited about. So I want to show some of the ones that have been there for a while, but also the ones that are, kind of new and exciting that we're celebrating. So this gives you a kind of an overview. It's still just over a third complete, but this is a really important loop as it does connect those really densely populated population centers and cities, Philadelphia and Camden in the south there, and then Morrisville and Trenton. And these again are connected along the I-95 corridor, along Amtrak's Northeast corridor, as well as NJ Transit and SEPTA, and we'll get into a little bit of that because we have those dotted lines where we don't have trails. And so in the meantime, it's really great to be able to get into a train with your bike and hop out at one of the stations so you don't have to worry about kind of the tougher roads that might be in between where we don't have trails. So starting the south, we're crossing the Ben Franklin Bridge, a pathway there. If folks haven't seen it, I really recommend getting up there. It's got gorgeous views of both sides of the river and the Philadelphia skyline and the new waterfront in Camden. It also, in the bottom right there, has this wonderful new walkway that is no longer a set of stairs, but actually a smooth, accessible walkway for wheelchairs, for strollers, for people with mobility issues. So hugely improved pathway now to connect those two cities across the Delaware River. And then going up to the north, so these are sort of the endpoints. This is crossing over from Trenton into Morrisville on the Calhoun Street Bridge. So it's a beautiful old historic bridge, lovely views of the river there. The approach on the Trenton side is a little bit high stress and traffic, so I also recommend looking at another bridge just down the river. The Trenton makes the bridge there from Trenton to Morrisville, just south. And you can see in the bottom left there on an icy day, that was the levee that we rode on between these two trails. So it's maybe a few minute bike ride or maybe 5-10 minute walk between the two. A lot of people who work in Trenton do that walk, loop around there. So both great options as the endpoints. So kind of zooming back out, talking a little bit more about all the different sites along the trails and along the planned trails. So there's a number of parks that are already offering great views, some fishing, some kayaking. There's a lot of details in these that I can't get to all today, but I do want to make this map available. We'll make it on our website, and then folks want to reach out to me, I'll have my email up at the end too. But these are all sites that are being linked by these trails along those dotted lines. And I wanted to kind of highlight, that though the giant loop is about 70 miles on each side of the river, which was a lot to do, looking at a closer loop, Philly, Camden to the Tacony Palmyra Bridge, that would be about 18 miles full loop. Unfortunately, right now, there's some stressful biking there. I think a number of experienced cyclists can do this pretty easily, but we really want to make this family friendly. We really want to make this possible for younger kids, but also just people that aren't comfortable biking in traffic, which is, all ages. So looking at the stress of that, I highly advise folks to just look at Google Street View at what you might be getting into. If you're looking at some of those dotted lines and you want to get out there, it might not be just ready yet. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission has a great tool that I wanted to highlight for folks looking at level of traffic stress, which is the LTS, just to kind of, if you're thinking about biking some of these portions, they have a stress bike map that actually looks at all the different streets and highlights which ones are less stressful. So, a little bit easier going, smaller residential roads, slow traffic that doesn't come that often, narrower streets versus the really stressful ones, which are wider, high traffic. And you can see along the river, basically especially through on the I-95, that's the solid red line there on the Philly side. And then even along River Road and Broad Street, you might end up with something like this. So just again, as a reminder, do your homework beforehand. But in light of that, there's lots of transit stations that can help you get there. obviously you can drive. There's a lot of parking at some of these. Definitely do your homework beforehand. We want to kind of provide more resources for that to give you a better sense of that. But just showing that this is accessible today despite those tough connections on the road at the moment. And so really highlighting that the SEPTA regional line parallels the trail on the Pennsylvania side, and the NJ River line, the light rail, follows the Jersey side. So both of those, except you can bring your bike on with you. Actually, SEPTA now allows you to do that at any time. It used to be limited to certain hours, not during commute peaks, but they are definitely pushing for more ridership. Make sure you wear a mask right now, and distance where you can. But you can access a lot of these places just using that transit line. So wanted to get in a little bit closer and show some of those highlights, get some pictures up instead of just the maps. So I'm only going to pick out a few because there's a lot to see. But want to highlight a new park and trail along the Delaware River, just north of sort of the center city area around Fishtown in Philly, is the Delaware River Trail. This is was the existing trail that connects you to a new park, reconstruction basically, and Penn Treaty Park right on the Delaware there. A gorgeous new promenade, some seating, and just a lot of space for reflection, a lot of space for kids to play. This was actually early in the morning, so it wasn't super populated at the time and earlier in the year. However, now it's great to get out for distancing, for recreation, but it also eventually will connect you down. You can see the Ben Franklin Bridge there, down to Center City. So I believe a number of people will start using it if they haven't already, to commute if they're working down there. So switching sides of the river. I wanted to highlight another really sweet spot, the Palmyra Nature Cove. And this is actually just by the Tacony-Palmyra Bridge there. So this is got lots of walking paths. Unfortunately, not for biking, although we do want to get the trail to connect to the nature center that's there, so that someone could bike there, lock up their bike, and then go for a walk. As you can see, there's incredible views up and down the river, and along some boardwalks. Really recommend checking that out. Jumping back over to the Pennsylvania side, over to Lardner's Point Park Trail, in the K&T Trail. So just you can see actually the nature center in the distance there across the river. So across from that on the Pennsylvania side is the K&T Trail. So this is an old railroad right-of-way that they converted to a trail, and it's only a couple miles long, and there's another section in the making coming up in the next year or so. But it has fishing, great views. There's a natural habitat with native plants. And again, here's more of that. You can see the railroad corridor, the lines above, what that looked like, and again, views of the river. And then jumping a little bit north up to Pennypack on the Delaware. It's a true gem, a huge space that I think a lot of people actually don't know about it in Philly. So I'm hoping that as people seek out more trails that might not be as crowded, or just to change it up, to explore around, do some local tourism, staycations, check out Pennypack on the Delaware. It connects to the Pennypack Trail, which is a gorgeous trail that I think probably more folks know about, especially further up, which actually goes across the city up to Montgomery County. So that is a fully connected trail down to the river, kind of meeting at State and Ron there. But it gets you to, a riverfront view. There's actually some ball fields that are out of the picture. But yeah, great place to walk your dog, go sightsee. There's a lot of bird watching in the area. Bald eagle's nests, I think, is just off the trail a little bit within sight. And you can see there's some walking paths down to the river in that bottom photo to the right, which is just really fantastic, kind of hidden gem in Philly. And there's yet another hidden part of it that's only open, unfortunately, at the moment on Saturdays and Sundays between Memorial Day and Labor Day, and that's the Baxter Trail. So that actually connects you from Pennypack on the Delaware across the tributary there, but still along the river. It has these little kind of pinhole views of the river. It actually has a large wall next to it because it's right next to a gun range. So it's all very safe. That's why the fortifications are there, and also the limited hours. But they are working to get that open all year round. So we got to keep getting people out there, keep taking pictures, keep the demand up. So wanted to highlight another new segment, which is really exciting. You don't often get a new sort of 5-mile chunk of trail. This is just outside of Roebling. So you can take the river line there, easily accessible off the road. And it has the riverfront trails already there, and it's going to connect the sort of horseshoe over to number 16 there to Crystal Lake Park. So here's the Roebling Steel Museum. Really impressive site there on the river. And then the trail itself comes off actually in the bottom right there. That's sort of where it meets the river itself. And then it winds its way through some farmland up to Crystal Lake Park. And then it actually finds its way on a separated path from 130 up to Bordentown. So this is all part of the Delaware River Heritage Trail, which goes from Trenton down to Camden. But this is sort of the newest segment of that. And Bordentown is already a really lovely kind of low stress set of roads to bike around. So if you wanted to look for a trip, I would definitely recommend maybe taking the train to Roebling, biking into Bordentown and up the DNR to Trenton, or vice versa. So wanted to also give another shout out to another side of the river and another canal trail, the Delaware and Lehigh trail, which goes 165 miles way up past our corridor, but it does connect Bristol and Morrisville on the East Coast Greenway, and this is that canal towpath just north of Bristol. They had a number of segments that had some gaps in it before, but actually in the last couple of years, those pretty much all being resolved. There's a beautiful 10 miles between Bristol and Morrisville. So it's kind of a whole lot of photos and a lot of ideas. Wanted to give folks, the opportunity to check out more of these. You can actually see where we have trails kind of marked out on our mapping tool. So if you did want to bike certain portions, we tried to provide, the shortest path that's direct, but on the lowest stress road we could find if there is an option. Check out that at map.greenway.org. And then for just information about the Greenway as a whole, greenway.org, and you can support our work as we try to get these trails connected together up and down the coast. So again, my name is Daniel Pascal. I can kind of stay on and see if there's any questions coming in, and try to answer those. See if folks are chiming in. Let's see. Might have slow risers today, but this will be recorded, so you can watch it at any time. It'll be, I believe, on our Facebook. We definitely want to recommend folks checking out the rest of the Delaware River Fest that's being held by the Partnership for Delaware Estuary. Lots of cool events going on that are virtual that can actually get you out into the physical world. They're not just PowerPoint presentations, so that will be exciting for everybody. And hang on for just a little bit, see if anything else comes in. Looks like we've got a couple. So when do you think this will be completed? That's a great question. It varies very much of this that you're talking about. So if you're talking about the Delaware Loop Trail that I've been looking at, back to a bigger view. So that will be much sooner than later, thankfully, much sooner than the whole East Coast. The whole East Coast is probably many years in the making. We've already been working on it since 1991 as a nonprofit, the East Coast Greenway Alliance, but we have 1,000 miles now on the ground. The whole corridor is 3,000. So as we scale up, if we can build capacity and get more people aware of this, that could be a shorter timeline. But I think we can get a good majority done by 2025 and then 2030, really. This area, 2025 is really a much closer timeline for a number of these pieces, especially on the Pennsylvania side. Um, it is a little bit tougher on the New Jersey side. We don't have as much momentum, but that's exactly why we're presenting today, and we want to, make sure that folks are aware of this plan. Working with partners like the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, Cooper's Ferry Partnership, and Camden. They're building out a number of trails. North Camden are working with partners there to build those out. There's others. Burlington County Planning Department has been awesome getting 3 of these parks going. Actually, there's another segment coming online around the Rancocas Creek area that will connect Amico Island to Pennington Park. So there, you just have to kind of keep checking in every year as those come together. So, oh yeah, any upcoming trails. So that definitely is one of those. Let me get to the transit station. So yeah, definitely around that area. There's some in Burlington already. They have a really beautiful promenade I didn't get to show. But the Riverside and Delanco area, that's where the Amico Island, number 9, you want to connect to that. There already is walking paths around Amico Island. I actually haven't been out there, so sorry, I don't know as much of the details there, but that's a great trail coming up. The K&T I mentioned before is around basically the Tacony neighborhood, and that will extend this trail past the Tacony-Holmesburg Bridge, so offering more waterfront views. Let's see. I do have a short survey I think the festival has in case get your feedback on any of this. Again, we want to make sure that folks are aware of these and that they're advocating for them, because really what stands in the way of this being a few years or a few decades is support, local support. So we really appreciate all the help. Again, the Circuit Trails Coalition is the regional effort. There are a number of trails actually we're advocating for right now. So check out circuittrails.org to get involved there, as well as greenway.org to get involved with Greenway. I think that might be all the questions I see so far. Give it just a few more seconds. So we've got one. How long do you hope the trail system ultimately will be? So the whole system for the East Coast Greenway is about 3,000 miles, and that includes a number of loops. So one of these being the Delaware River Trail and Delaware River Heritage Trail loop. But we also have some loops. You can go up to a bigger map. You can see one around New York City on each side of the Hudson River. And then a really large one actually takes us into the Piedmont area of North Carolina through the Research Triangle, the Raleigh-Durham area. That's this heavily completed 75 miles through the metro area. So there's another loop up in the Boston area. One goes out to Cape Cod. One cuts into the middle of Massachusetts. We've got one along the coast in Maine and one coming in more inland. And then again, the same out in Florida down the coast and then more inland. So 3,000 miles includes all of those loops. It's a whole network when you include all the metro area networks like the circuit trails. So every city has a version of this. In DC, actually in Wilmington, in the Baltimore area, in DC, they have these sort of spreading spider webs, same with New York City. So it really just kind of depends on how you quantify it. But again, in the Philly area, that's 800 miles, and we're trying to get to 500 by 2025. So stay tuned again for that. And I think that might be the last one. Well, appreciate everyone's time, and I will see everybody out on the trail.